Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus. Looking at a couple changes we're going to test out in Tariq Patel's list that we've been running the last couple of leagues. We're not actually going to do a league, this particular stream, event, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be doing some two-man queues. List we've been working with was the list he tweeted out in late June. Been having a huge degree of success with it in paper at my LGS. Last three Tuesday nights combined, I think I'm 8-0-1 with the 1 being an intentional draw. Overall, list has been pretty solid. Going to start doing some small tweaking with Hogok not in the format anymore, maybe shifting around some of the cards in the main deck, the sideboard. The first configuration we're going to test tonight, we're going to start out by moving the surgical extractions to the sideboard, cutting one of the surgicals, adding a second copy of a braid. One of the things I've been running into is a lot of Chalice decks. I put against a humans deck with 4 copies of Chalice between the main and sideboard last night at Tuesday Night Magic. Also, have been playing a couple of Hollow One decks, so ironically Surgical Extraction has been kind of key in those matchups, but we are moving the Surgicals to the sideboard for right now. To replace them, we're going to try out some Force of Negations in the main as opposed to the sideboard. It is a configuration I saw in one of the lists that did well at the SCG Classic. Also, another thing is Drake Sasser is currently streaming his own version of Phoenix on Twitch right now, but that'll be up on YouTube here shortly, I'm sure in the next couple days. He focuses on having the Pyromancer's Ascension in the main deck and the Aria Flames out of the sideboard. So if you want a different perspective on Arclight Phoenix, don't forget to look up Drake Sasser on YouTube. He frequently does, probably every other week I think he's usually doing Phoenix, or when he's playing for a big event or came back from a big event. So don't forget to check him out if you want a different look as far as like Aria Flame as opposed to Pyromancer's Ascension. Also, as a friendly reminder, if you like the content on the channel, please consider subscribing, as we're aiming to become the most informative Lightning Bolt based channel here on YouTube for both Arclight Phoenix decks and Burn in Modern. And as far as other changes in the deck we're trying out, we're cutting one Magmatic Sinkhole for 1 copy of Flame Slash for a couple matches. And I think that's enough tweaks for right now. We'll get into some two-man queues. A couple of things I'm interested in testing over the coming weeks is, are these off-color blue fetch lands, whether it be Floodstrand, Polluted Delta, Misty Rainforest, is it better to run something like Prismatic Vista to be able to fetch Island or Mountain, or is it just better to be able to fetch up copies of Steam Vents and to just eat the damage regardless of the situation? Like, say you need a red source and you have a Flood Strand, you're going to have to fetch Shock every time. So it might be worth testing some amount of Prismatic Vistas in these off-color fetch slots, but that'll be something we do in another video. With that, I'm going to hop into the two-man queues, and we'll be back here in a minute with this concurrent configuration in the match. So we're back with match number 1. Obviously this hand's a pretty easy mulligan. No real way you can justify keeping a 5-lander, although we could easily mulligan into... this hand's pretty solid. I think we put back one of the lands here, and I think it's just Steam Vents itself, and we can fetch that out on turn 1. So alright, looks like some type of black-green X strategy, potentially. Probably gives a good bit of information away as to what we're working with here, but... alright, yep, some type of definitely black-green X strategy. Would be interesting if we run into Rock. It's not a matchup I've had the opportunity. Okay, this looks like it's just Jund. It's only Jund. Them getting a Dark Confidant's kind of annoying with as much removal as we have in our main deck, so... So I have a couple different play lines here. I can play Thing in the Ice, try to protect it with Force of Negation, put our opponent on as quick a clock as possible, or we can try to get a red removal this turn by cycling our Manamorphosis and Sleight of Hand. I feel like the Thing in the Ice plan has a little bit higher upside. This is probably not a matchup we can win in grinding fashion. So hopefully they just slam something like a Liliana here. As much as I wouldn't want a 2-for-1 myself, I think we 2-for-1 ourselves here. So this is interesting to see Force of Negation, which obviously is not a card you'd likely bring in against Black-Green X. In fact, no, his sideboard guide, Tariq, has mana costs. Another Dark Confidant, huh? So I could fetch Basic Island, I could play Basic Mountain. I think we just play the Mountain. Try to flip our thing this turn. Draw another island, obviously, or another land here was not ideal. Might have been a reason to hold off playing the Mountain, though, because we could have hit, awkward. Do this, because we want to hit another blue card to be able to protect. Yee. Alright, I guess we take Faithless Looting here. Hope to blind hit some birds. Another Thing in the Ice and a Lightning Bolt. I just pitch the 2 lands here. Bloodbraid Elf obviously would be kind of obnoxious, as would Seasoned Pyromancer. Definitely would slow down our clock. Yep, looks like it's Bloodbraid Elf. Thoughtseize, huh? So do we just bolt their face? I think we just let this Thoughtseize resolve. It's possible they take bolt anyway. I think the takes here either full bolt or Force of Negation would be my guess. Like, we could have put them to... They take Thought Scour, that's interesting. Do I bolt here? Worded exactly. Yeah, opponent should realize that's game. Alright, so normally we'd be bolting out Lava Dart and a Faithless Looting for all of our various... Still don't know how I feel about bringing in, not bringing in things like, -1 Aria, -1 Bolt, +2 Blood Moon. So bring in the Narsets. Bring in the Blood Moons. Sahili. 1 copy of a Braid. I don't know how I feel about a Braid in this matchup. Like, it feels like a braid's just like a kind of a non-starter. Cut that. Cut one Aria Flame. Probably the Force of Negations can go out. And then a Faithless Looting. So still trying to go for kind of the grindy plan here, with the possibility of a Blood Moon kicker. Yeah, probably discard spell on one. Somewhat playing around Blood Moon. Guessing they'll take Thing in the Ice here. Take Faithless Looting. Alright, I'm guessing that means you just have some style of answer to should have played the Scalding Tarn there. Yep, or you just have another Inquisition. Still don't think we have a reason to spew value right now. Like, we could search for Aria Flame. I have a feeling we're going to get hit by a Liliana and really regret not bringing in Spell Pierces here. Yep. So what do I even pitch here? Guess I pitch Thought Scour itself. Awkward. Pass turn. Hope our opponent doesn't have some type of graveyard hate piece here. There's an Ashashin trophy. Okay. Sure. Very large Tarmogoofy. One unknown card in hand. Wow. Do I get greedy here? I think the answer is yes. I mean, probably losing this matchup. Don't get a little bit lucky here. Son of a gun. Got greedy, got punished. Get wrecked. Oh, flubber. Yeah, that's... got too greedy and got punished there. Still don't know how I feel about the lack of counter magic for Liliana. Got too greedy there. Got greedy, got punished. Should have just been happy with the 2 Phoenixes and tried to race. So... that's a hand. I think we keep it. Has a couple different game plans. I think the main thing we're looking for right now is... do I play Faithless Looting here? I think I play Serum Visions. Yeah, like, they get to take our first copy of Aria Flame here. Either Aria Flame or Faithless Looting. No, we're drawing land into... alright, so... maybe they haven't... pass turn. Maybe they haven't answered Aria Flame? Is that what's going on here? Termaglyph or Confidant? Right in 6. Okay. Assassin's Trophy or a... whatchamacallit here? Sure, probably take Lightning Bolt. Their Aria Flame. So, Assassin's Trophy? Yeah. Feels like Assassin's Trophy. Should have gotten a mountain there. So I could guaranteed get a shot in here. I'll just take the guaranteed shot at running 6. Do I play this Spire Bluff Canal? I don't think so. Gets to continue to get value off the run in 6. Don't see what the point of doing that was, but whatever. So I can double tap to kill that. I could flashback Faithless Looting. Let's go ahead and kill run in 6 here. We've already gotten a ton of value off of it. It's highly possible to even have another one. At least we have a plan for next turn. Kill the Tarmo, kill the Tarmo. One's got a bolt like they repped last turn, which is fine. No Aria Flames kind of sucks though. Like, am I legit pitching Narset if they have Liliana here? Okay, they got themselves lots of lands. Okay, got another Tarmo. Yeah, I think we gotta go for the whole, guess what's back? Back again. What on earth's in your hand? Lots of lands? Apparently lots of lands. Sure. Bloodmoon doesn't do a ton in this spot, so I think we just jam Arclight. themselves another Tarmo. Yeah, it's a thing. Hmm. Do I run the gambit of block plus sinkhole? That at least gives us a way to rebuild after block plus sinkhole, should our Arclight Phoenix not die next turn. Oh, what a gambit to run, though. Please don't have drawn a removal spell. Nice. Do the thing. Goodbye, Tarmogoyf. Don't want to risk going any lower, so I'm just going to get a basic island here. Play out Saheeli. Well, I could easily be sitting on Bolt here. Trigger, dude. Swing with one. I don't want to die to like some combination of nonsense into nonsense. Like Bloodbraid Elf and Bolt or something. The Blood Moon does a ton here, but actually I guess it makes a dude. That would have been relevant, I suppose. So opponent just like took an extra point of damage for no good reason. this just game? Wow. Alright, so we came back to be Jun despite my misplay in game number 2. We'll be back here in a bit with match number 2. Hey, we're back for match number 2. Seems pretty reasonable. Thing in the ice, couple cantrips, finale I promise. So could set up finale I promise. Could wait and see what our opponent's game plan is. Oh, delightful. Snaring Bridge, huh? So what deck plays Gemstone Caverns and Ensnaring Bridge? Hold up the option to Boulder Thought Scour in case we get Chaliced on one. So I'm on a red prison. Yep, I'm getting Chaliced on one, aren't I? Desperate Ritual and the Blood Moon. Okay. That's adorable. Let's see what I go grab here. Liquid metal coating, sure. All those resources for that. Okay. Opponent's hand is liquid metal coating, 2 unknowns. Yep, there's our liquid metal coating, sure. I'm gonna get a little bit lucky here. Pitch that, pitch one of those, I guess. Play that out. Pass the turn. You have another Karn the Great Creator here. That would be mildly obnoxious. Let's get a basic island here. Force of Negation is good. Good insurance policy. Let's do the Metamorphose thing first. Guess we go with red-blue here. Flame Slash, not particularly relevant. And I screwed up. Should have gone with red-red. Flip that. Said with Force of Negation, we should still be in good positioning here despite my punt. And opponent concedes. Alright, so I highly doubt Mono Red Prison's on the list, right? It is surprisingly not on the list. Alright, so 100 copies of a Braid to be able to blow through there. Chalice and Prison Locks. Spell Pierces are reasonable. Flame Slash and Lava Dart, probably not necessary. Do you want to leave in some number of Lightning Bolts for things like Goblin Rabble Master and such? Aria Flame helps play through Blood Moon and their various lock shenanigans. Saheeli is reasonable here. Other cards I'm probably not interested in. Maybe it's just some number of Lightning Bolts. I don't want to spread my Braids too thin, trying to answer both creatures and planeswalkers here. Let's save some number of bolts. Still have 5 answers to a Rabble Master, plus a flip thing in the ice. I guess that's enough. Maybe shave. Is it shave a Finale of Promise here? Feels just like it might be a shave a Finale of Promise in case they bring in Graveyard Hate. I mean, I think we keep this hand. Hope we don't get chaliced on one. Alright. So, we get chaliced on one. This hand looks extremely terrible. Seriously? Yeah. That's a thing. Play around Blood Moon to the best of our ability for now. Hey, all these 1-mana cantrip thingies that are shut down unless we find a copy of a Braid. Yeah, that's a thing. Guess we play a defensive Arclight Phoenix. Like, what is our game plan? Rip and a braid this turn? Chalice is, like, literally locking out in our entire hand. Backup Chalice. Nope. Simian Spirit Guide. Is it crazy to bring in a copy of Anger of the Gods? Not sure what the point of that was. I'm sure they know Spell Pierce is coming in, so that's not a huge shocker there. So much value spewed just to stay alive really sucks. Like, do you have any other recourses in the sideboard? Like, potentially Anger of the Gods, I guess? I don't know. I don't think I actually want to risk that, because they could have a braid in their hand. Unlikely, but they could have it. Like, my entire, like, get back into this game plan is, like, Thing in the Ice, and if they have, like, a Chandra here, it's like, great. There's no way we're actually coming back to win this game, right? Like, I mean, they could play Rabblemaster. Anger of the Gods, sure. Still take a hit for 7. Is there any reason to crack that now? Ooh, yet another card I can't cast. I feel so excited. Alright, put them to 3. Post-comp. Why didn't you just play Rabble Master pre-combat? Could have gotten a chump attacker out of it either. Sure. Redraws are good. The fact that we came back to win that match, man. This deck. I have a plan, stick to it, I guess. This has been John for MTG Nexus. We'll be back here in a bit with match number 3. Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus doing a replay of the third and final match that we did with the variation we did on the Izzet Phoenix list by moving Force of Negations to the main and such. I think I'll cover in the wrap-up video. Didn't do a ton of matches this week, but this was more about testing one different configuration from Tariq Patel's original list. Third matchup we ran into was against Baron Moon, known YouTuber and Twitch streamer as well. She usually does various rogue builds, etc. Was probably the most unique of the 3 matchups we played, obviously the previous 2 being against Jund and Mono Red Prison. The games were a little weird in how they played out, so some of my play lines were probably not correct, but I also wasn't working with known information against a kind of unknown archetype. So game number 1 was kind of a slaughter on our side. We managed to find, we'll just get into it. So game number 1 was a good example of how Izzet Phoenix, especially in game 1, is such a busted card against removal heavy decks. Opening hand here, nothing too special. I think we end up keeping this. It's reasonable. Certainly a hand that can punish us. Opponent leads on snow-covered forest into birds. So we obviously know we're up against some type of snow deck. We bolt the bird. They play Fairy Seer, which is kind of a bizarre card, into another copy of birds. We set up for getting a bunch of phoenixes into our yard next turn. Opponent does the thing. A ninjutsu in Fallen Shinobi, which is a very bizarre card. Basically exiles the top 2 cards of our library, and they can cast them. So they proceed to exile a Finale of Promise and a Steam Vents. So we proceed to go Thing in the Ice here. Kind of wasted a turn because they have Maelstrom Pulse. Continue to get hit by this bizarre card. They find one of our copies of Arclight Phoenix. We pitch a bunch of Phoenixes. Kill the Shinobi here. We could have killed our own Arclight, but I think it was much more relevant to get the Shinobi off the board, because it would require a double block. So there's some type of ninjutsu deck, not quite sure what they're up to at this point. We flash back that. Go ahead and sinkhole one of these so they have less things to ninjutsu. Get back all of our phoenixes. Opponent plays a third creature. So I swing with these two, which may end up being a mistake, because that leaves us vulnerable to them ninjutsuing the Fallen Shinobi, but they just concede here on the spot. So if they would have had Fallen Shinobi here, we actually would have been dead, which was a mistake to not attack with either... Probably would have been a mistake to not attack with two of the three, but this game was just a basic example of, you know, finding your Arclight Phoenixes, grinding your opponent out. Things we note about our opponent's build is all we saw was Maelstrom Pulse, some Birds of Paradises, some Fairy Seers, and the one Fallen Shinobi. We're not quite sure what their entire game plan is at this point, but it is clear they're a Sultai Ninja strategy, so I kind of take the control role in the matchup, which ends up, I don't know, her deck she was playing in this video was just weird. So I ended up didn't board in the Blood Moons, didn't board in the Saheeli, boarded out an Aria Flame, couple copy of Surgical Extractions, boarded in the, or no, there is no Surgical Extractions in this build, boarded out a copy of Aria Flame and the Force of Negations, brought in 2 copies of Abrade, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, and boarded out a Finalia Promise in case our opponent brought in Graveyard Hate. First hand was obviously a pretty easy mulligan. This hand, pretty easy keep, although we do immediately stare down a Leyline of the Void, which was unsurprising. Kind of taking the control role here. Serum Visions to continue to sculpt our hand. Still looking for a way to win the game at this point. Opponent plays an Ice Fang Coatl. Start the Coatl beatdown plan, which kind of pass the turn here. Play another Coatl. Still no ninjutsu. Birds of Paradise. See an Aria Flame. Spewing some value, but basically we're looking for a 3rd land. Kill the bird, because I feel that's the more relevant of the cards at that point. They get Mist Syndicate Naga. Basically gets to copy itself every time it deals damage. Rather nasty little ability. Fortunately, we have Anger of the Gods. So we start playing Aria Flames. That to hold a Bolt. It plays an Abrupt Decay, plays another Coatl. Just go ahead and bolt that to keep their ninjutsu off the board. Flame Slash the puppy, get in with Izzet Phoenix, they go ahead and Fatal Push it. So opponent has a billion removal spells. Like seriously, we're seeing Fatal Pushes, Abrupt Decays, Assassin's Trophies. Like, we play threat after threat and they just all die. and we're like churning through our library. I start thought scouring them, hoping to kind of mill them out. We just play draw go for a while. Nothing too exciting. We can't find threats. They can't really find they can't find threats either. The Birds of Paradise. I kill it. Or end up killing it after we Faithless Looting through a bunch of our deck because I don't want them to ninjutsu it in. 3rd Leyline of the Void, sure. Cast Anger of the Gods, keep that ninjutsu threat off the board. Then I don't take my own advice, and I believe this is the bird that I end up not killing and ends up coming back to bite us in the hind end. Maelstrom Pulse, yep, here comes the ninjutsu. And this is actually where I think the game is lost, because this hit puts us down 4 cards to our opponent's library. And while I do have the answer in hand, I don't have the ability to pay 6 mana right now. So my opponent exiles a couple cards, finds an Arclight Phoenix, which is yet another threat that we can't really afford to not answer. Go ahead and sinkhole that, bolt that. Plays birds. Play an Arclight Phoenix. Get in for some damage. That was amazing. And then bolt the bird. Play a sleight of hand. Spell Stutter sprites it. Hold the Phoenix back, which might have been a mistake here. Just doing that in the face of ninjutsu. So at this point we're down cards. Maybe I shouldn't be cantripping, but I'm like, well, maybe I still have a chance, you know, if I find a thing in the ice or whatever. The problem becomes we have 8 cards left in library. That is our... Did I board out Aria Flame here? Yeah, I boarded out one of the copies of Aria Flame because I thought we were taking the control role. And... so... Opponent's Graveyard. Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay. Assassin's Trophy. Assassin's Trophy. Abrupt Decay. Fatal Push. Fatal Push. Maelstrom Pulse. Opponent having answers to every conceivable avenue of victory. Like one of the big things about Aria Flame is oftentimes very difficult to deal with. You know, even blue-white only has like detention spheres into fairies once it resolves. Jund and Black-Green Rock, which are another decks that have main deck ways to answer it, usually have like maybe 2 to 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, Assassin's Trophy, as they tend to be use the more efficient removal, like things like Fatal Push and such. And combine that with the inability to recur Art-like Phoenixes because of multiple copies of Leyline in the Void. Some decks you can't beat. That said, I haven't seen the video come out from this on her channel yet, but I can't imagine that this style of archetype is very good against something like Burn. I mean, I'm sure it's fine against things like humans, but I could see it having a lot of problems against things like Burn that just don't care about this kind of dinky creatures. And as long as you can keep the Fallen Shinobi off the battlefield, I just don't see Burn really caring about what this deck's trying to do. You know, it's one of the things which is kind of funny with the dichotomy on the channel of Burn and Izzet Phoenix, is a lot of the matchups like Burn's not great at, Izzet Phoenix is pretty good with, and a lot of the matchups Izzet Phoenix is bad at, Burn's pretty good with. Like, so decks like Tron and Blue-White that are problematic for Izzet Phoenix, Burn's historically pretty good against. The one, I think, weak point they both share in common are Black-Green X decks. Are not great matchups for either archetype. I mean, both decks can certainly win the matchups, but they're not the greatest of matchups in the world. So we keep this hands pretty solid. We have an Aria, Flame, couple cantrips, and a Braid. Opponent once again leads on a Leyline. Go ahead and Serum Visions, keep a thing in the ice on top. You know, I'm figuring we're in decent shape here. I'm figuring having multiple threats. Opponent passes without answering anything, so I just cast Aria Flame. They Abrupt Decay the Aria Flame. Alright, so opponent's kind of giving away that they might have Maelstrom Pulse here. We Metamorphose, try to flip the thing. Good. Faithless Looting here, which was actually probably a mistake. Go ahead and Lava Dart the stupid thing. Swing in with... Alright, so opponent plays Coatl, we kill Coatl, opponent untaps, and Maelstrom pulses us, kill their bird, keep them off the thing, get the thing in the ice into play, cast another copy of Aria Flame, plays Coatl, Fatal pushes our thing in the ice, has this guy, which makes copies of itself. We have no way to answer it right now. Another Aria Flame. Another Coatl. We're under a lot of pressure here. Pretty much got to find an Anger of the Gods. Opponent trophies us, which is nice. Okay, I don't know why they flash in Coatl here. It's kind of a weird timing. Double bolt. Goes to the bottom. I concede here. Um, Obviously, this was a little bit early. I could have potentially gone sack this for one last draw at an Anger of the Gods. So I did have one more potential draw. But like I said, they answered in this game. They answered 2 copies of Thing in the Ice. Is it 2 copies? Yeah, 2 copies of Thing in the Ice. 2 copies of Aria Flame. Brought the 3rd Aria back in. I boarded out the 2nd copy of Finale of Promise. In the sinkholes in the sideboard because, opponent bringing in hard graveyard hate. So, nice job to Marin MTG with her particular brew. It seems effective in certain spots. My only question is how does it perform against other decks that are very heavy on removal, things like blue-white control, or on the other end of the spectrum, how does it perform against things like Burn and potentially Tron? Like, I guess Tron, you have things like Assassin's Trophy. You have a fairly fast tempo plan with the Miss Syndicate, whatever, and if you happen to hit with a Fallen Shinobi and hit like a Karn or a Worm Coil or something, I'm sure it gets really stupid. But really interesting deck. But if your opponent understands what you're doing and they have the tools to beat you, seems like this is a deck that certainly has a lot of moving pieces and a lot of control elements, which is fine. It's a mid-range Sultai deck, but Assassin's Trophy, Fatal Push, Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay. It's really hard for Izzet Phoenix to kind of punch through that amount of hard removal, especially in the face of a Ley Line of the Void. With that, we'll get back to reviewing the deck overall. I'll get back to that here in 1 second. Hey everybody, we're back for the wrap-up. I do apologize for the blower sound in the background here. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning, but I believe it's already over 80 degrees here in Ohio. We're supposed to have quite a vicious heat wave the next couple days, so it's part of the reason I got up earlier this morning was to finish off this video from something I had recorded Wednesday night. The original video quality wasn't great, so that's why I went back and did a review for him for this last match there against Marin MTG. So this build, if you recall from the intro, we switched out basically Force of Negations for the Surgical Extractions in the main deck. Testing to see, Force of Negation in the main deck. There were a couple of spots, especially that one in the Jund matchup where it protected us from spot removal, allowed us to tempo our opponent out. There was a build, I'm kind of going over this, should be able to find it, but basically there was a build that did that in the recent SCG Classic. So there was a Modern Mox that did some interesting lists. Was it Alex Morill's version of the deck? Yeah, Alex Morill, his version of the deck, this was kind of where I took the inspiration for moving the Force of Negations to the main deck. His list is very similar to what Tariq did with his main deck, except the Force of Negations were in the main deck slot and the Surgicals were in the sideboard. It's kind of where I took the idea of testing Force of Negation from the main to the side. The rest of this list, you have one copy of Lava Dart over the original Magmatic Sinkhole. So this deck is very similar to what it's doing, other than it has the Force of Negations. He likes the card a lot, obviously, because he has a 3rd one on the side, along with a couple of Spell Pierces. Fry has some interesting technology. I'm guessing this is pretty good against specifically humans and blue-white control. So that's pretty good tech, especially when those are 2 of the more played matchups that you'll see a lot of. So it's kind of where I took the inspiration from that particular move. Deck performed overall pretty well. I mean, we got a little bit lucky to beat Mono Red Prison, especially in that game 2. Arclight Phoenix coming back a couple times despite the Chalice on 1. I think there's going to be an uptick in Chalice decks now that Hogak is banned. Obviously, well, not banned, but Hogak deck is kind of defunct no more. I I think you're going to see more and more decks like Eldrazi-tron, decks like Humans and such, all of which can be potentially packing Chalice of the Voids. I played against a Humans deck at my LGS on this past Tuesday that had 4 copies of Chalice between main and sideboard. Had like a little bit of a twist with Gemstone Cavern? Yeah, Gemstone Cavern in the list, so he could like on turn 1 Chalice me, which he did in one game. So having divergent like mana costs on your removal spells like Flame as opposed to, you know, a second copy of Flame Slash, having another Magmatic Sinkhole in the list certainly made a lot of sense. Magmatic Sinkhole gives you a lot of play against the Planeswalkers, same thing as Fry. But obviously, if your opponent's bringing in Graveyard Hate, that's a lot less effective, as we saw. So it's kind of a combination of, do you fear Graveyard Hate, making your Delve spells considerably worse, or do you fear Chalice on Void, as far as like your spread of removal spells? Sideboard, obviously things just kind of got shuffled around. I was really happy with the second copy of Abraid. You know, gives you outs to things like Chalice, especially if you're not able to cantrip through your deck. The Force of Negations in the main, I don't think that's the right call, but I mean there are certain metas where I could see Force of Negation being the correct free spell to put in your main deck. I'm not sure if I just go back to the Surgicals or if I test Lava Darts. The thing about Izzet Phoenix is insanely customizable and has the huge ability to generally find whatever hate card it's looking for. So only running like 2 copies of whatever like interactive spell, hate card, whatever you're doing. Aria Flame, insane card. I think next week I'm going to try out Drake Sasser's list, or something close to it, with the Pyromancer's Ascensions in the main deck. That's like the one version of Izzet Phoenix I don't have a lot of experience with. Several months ago when we were playing Phoenix as part of our like 3-a-day video stuff with, you know, Burn, Arclight Phoenix, and Mono Red Phoenix, and we were playing the Sultai Teachings deck. I played with some of the Terramander versions, the Crackling Drake versions, you know, all those kind of various configurations. So I have some familiarity with just about every version of Phoenix except for the Pyromancer's Ascension. The one thing Ascension dictates is that you have pretty much all 4 ofs on your spells, other than maybe Finale of Promise. So that'll be something to keep an eye on next week. If you want to see other Izzet Phoenix content in addition to what's recorded on this channel, I think Drake Sasser is about the most consistent other producer of Izzet Phoenix content. He does it probably every couple weeks or so. He records a video. So if you're looking for other Izzet Phoenix content, look up Drake Sasser's channel. I think I'll include a link in the channel. So if you're looking for more Izzet Phoenix content, besides the one video we're putting out a week, feel free to check out Drake's channel. Beyond that, I mean, I think next week we're going to try the Pyromancer's Ascension version. Another thing that I mentioned early in the video on is looking at these, like, the off-color fetches is something like Prismatic Vista, just better. Like, the Scalding Tarns allow you to obviously get your Steam Vents and your basic lands, but like these off-color fetches only allow you to either get Steam Vents or Island. Like, you don't have access to just getting basic Mountain. So is it better to have access to take 3, get Steam Vents, or is it better to have access to pay 1, get whichever basic land you need? I think that's certainly something that could be looked at. I don't think it matters which blue fetch you have, whether it's Misty Rainforest, Blue to Delta, Flooded Strand in that kind of tertiary slot there. So I think that's a couple of things that I want to test moving forward. Obviously the deck is very good. It's probably, I would say, far and away the best deck in Modern. It still has its weak points. There are certain decks that can beat it. You know, decks like Burn are still problematic. Blue-white, you have to have the right sideboard configuration to make that matchup fairly decent. Tron's still a very close, slightly unfavorable matchup. Humans, if you're leaning too hard into the Graveyard Hate, is a problematic matchup. You know, Lava Dart goes a long way towards helping to fix that. Things like Gut Shot, combination of things like Fry and stuff. But overall, I'm very happy with the deck. Obviously, the deck in question that I really like is Drake's version, and it's just a matter of finding like what configurations are correct for, you know, the meta moving forward, or not Drake's, Tariq's original list, And then we'll take a look at Drake's list next week, one of his lists. He does variations on it, but he's generally been sticking to like 2 Pyromancer's Ascension in the main, and 1 or 2 copies of Crackling Drake, and then some amount of like Force of Negations and Aria Flames in the sideboard, which does limit your utility out of your sideboard if you're like sideboarding in Aria Flames instead of main decking them. But he's obviously a huge fan of Pyromancer's Ascension, so let's give it a go next time, see how it goes for us. Keeping in mind that's a version of the deck that I haven't played much before, so I'll be learning, the ins and outs of Pyromancer's Ascension. If there's like different ways to sequence cantrips and such. If anybody has any tips for that, obviously I'll be watching some of Drake's videos to try to learn the differences of the archetype, but if you have any tips for the correct way to sequencing things for Pyromancer's Ascension version of the deck, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. And as always, just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. This has been John for MTG Nexus. Everybody have a great day.